Okay, so welcome. I'm Karen A, and this is the Afro-Euro Reco12 podcast. I'm here outdoors in a beautiful sunny day here in Jerusalem, and I welcome everybody to this meeting. Reco12 is a family of recovery resources. You can go to reco12.com, where you will find Noodle It Out with Mickey, the Big Book Roundtable, our Afro-Euro podcast, and several other resources that take addicts and their loved ones deep into the 12 steps of AA and help people who are recovering from all addictions, all afflictions, substances, people, food, and otherwise. It is my honor to be here today with my friend, fellow partner, and sister, Kirsty from the UK. And today we're going to talk about step 4, big old, good old step 4. If you would like to sponsor Reco12 or rather participate and do a 7th tradition, you could go to reco12.com/support and you could help us out by PayPal or Venmo. And that helps cover the cost of the Zooms, the materials, etc. Without further ado, maybe I'll have Kirsty introduce herself since you may have not met her in the past. We are doing steps 1 through 12, and you're welcome to go to the website to see us discuss. Last year, we started off with the family afterwards, and then we decided we're going to go steps 1 through 12. Me, Kirsty, and usually our sister Nadia in Africa, South Africa, is here. She's not with us today, but she is in spirit and prayer. Kirsty, will you introduce yourself and then just go right ahead into reading about step 4 and the step 4 instructions as they are discussed in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous?
Thank you. Yes, Karen. Kirsty, addict, alcoholic. Thank you for having me. Thank you for putting this platform. I'm very, very grateful to be here. So step 4 in the book, I start reading it just a little bit before it actually says, therefore, we started upon step 4. So on the bottom of page 63, next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, meaning like next after my step 3, launch out. The first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us had never attempted, though our decision, so my step 3 decision, was a vital and crucial step. It could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor, drug of choice, was but a symptom, so we had to get down to the causes and conditions. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unusable goods, to get rid of them promptly without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. We searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. Resentment is the number 1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics, addicts than anything else. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, and our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were burned up. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? We were usually as definite as this example. So example 1, I am resentful at Mr. Brown. Column 2, the cause. Why am I angry? His attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress. Brown may get my job at the office. What this affects, my column 3. Sex relations, self-esteem, sex relations, self-esteem, security. And in little brackets at the side of each one of them is fear. Mrs. Jones, for the next example, column 1. Column 2, she's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend. She's a gossip. What this affects in me, column 3. Personal relationships, self-esteem, and fear in bracket. Example 3, my employer, unreasonable, unjust, overbearing. Threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. Column 3, this affects my self-esteem and my security, in brackets fear. Next example, column 1, my wife misunderstands and nags likes Brown, wants house put in her name. Column 3, this affects my pride, personal, sex relations, security, in brackets fear. So we went back through our lives, nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finally finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It's plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic addict whose hope is the maintenance and growth of spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal. For when harbouring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again. And with us, to drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, addicts, these things are poison. We turned back to the list. It held the key to the future. We prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state of wrongdoings, others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. This was our course. We realised that the people who wronged us were spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight. Notice that the word fear is bracketed alongside the difficulties with Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, the employer, and the wife. This short word somehow touches about every aspect of our lives. It was an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve, but did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. We reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. We asked ourselves why we had them. Wasn't it because self-reliance failed us? Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other. When it made us cocky, it was worse. Perhaps there is a better way we think so, for now we are on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role He assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think He would. Just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us, and humbly rely on Him. Does He enable us to match calamity with serenity? We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality is a way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is a way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear.
Amazing, amazing. So that's a lot to digest, right?
Yeah, I thought, are we stopping there?
You read it beautifully. Thank you, Kirsty. So the first sentence that Kirsty read, and maybe we'll just have you reread that first sentence in a second, includes the word action, vigorous, launched, all aggressive action verbs. We throw ourselves into this inventory. It's not just like, oh, let me see how many Cheerios are on the shelf and how many All Bran and how many Rice Krispies. You know, we're like more of like a shopping spree here. We're like racing around to get rid of what isn't working, taking on our inventory. Now, step 4 is where a lot of relapse happens, right? A lot of people relapse in step 4 because they don't do it vigorously. They don't launch. They don't immediately. They don't action, right? They want to pray. They love fellowship, and fellowship is great. In the beginning, we need a lot of TLC, a lot of validation, a lot of hugging, a lot of people to wipe our tears, and that's okay. I've been there. But if we want to recover according to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, We have to get into action, and more action. We take the inventory, listing our resentments, and then we go on to our fears. Do you want to read that first sentence again, Kirsty, and talk a little bit about that? How you get sponsors from having said that step 3 prayer that they've effectively committed to say that day and every day for the rest of their lives, turning their will and the life over to the care of God as they understand Him or it or whatever it is for them, and getting into the step 4 to do the house cleaning. So go ahead.
Yes. So next we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning. So thank God for my sponsor. She did the step 3 prayer with me and then just launched me into the vigorous action, give me my step 4 sheets, explained it and said, like, you've got 2 days. And I just got on, did it, like my life depended on it, because my life does depend on it. Vigorous action. And when I work with ladies today, I just do exactly what my sponsor did with me and point out like little permanent effects. So, and I think it comes back down to step 3. If I've got my step 3 and I've turned my will and my life over to the care of God and I've been reborn, like I don't need to worry about this step 4. I'm writing about a person that I'm not anymore. I'm just writing facts down about somebody else to clear that blockage from God. Like it's totally irrelevant what's going on in the paper because I'm reborn. So I'm a new Kirsty, like, so I'm just writing about this horrendous, terrible person that I no longer know because I've been reborn and I've got God with me and I'm safe and protected. And I know that it was the best thing that I ever did. And I just got on with it and did it. And thank God my sponsor made it known to me that my step 3 had little permanent effects. I cannot be reborn and be a child of God without getting this blockage. And how I get this blockage is going through the other steps.
Thank you so much. I love that. I've never heard that. Joseph said, "Here, bullseye, you're writing about someone else." And Joseph, I was actually going to ask you to join us on the podcast in Nadia's absence, but then I realized I called it the Mommy Podcast and I didn't want to get in trouble, but I thought you would have a lot to share here and hopefully you will soon. What do I want to say here? Some step 4 experience, strength, and hope. Some step 4 wisdom. It says later in the big book that we get a sense of our grosser handicaps. Now, I've been in these rooms and I'm not bashing, but I am saying, that I was perhaps, hugged to death, or I didn't get recovery in OA where, I was, a year reading the 12 and 12 before I even started step 1. Or step 4 was like a whole lot of journaling. And the big book says we get a sense of our grosser handicap. You really just want, if you're sponsoring people, you just really want them to do the step 4 and have that aha moment. Like without fail, every sponsee of mine is going to get, oh, I get it. I'm the problem. I'm expecting my mom to act normal when she's bipolar. That's dishonest. That's selfish. I'm trying to play God. That's all we're really going for. Oh, I'm arrogant. I want my daughter to be thin, pretty, and get straight A's. Like all we want is for our sponsee to get in that habit of seeing their part, putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done. We look for where was I at fault? Where was I to blame? Now, that's a hard pill to swallow, especially, for those of us, there are many of us who've been abused, raped, traumatized, beaten up, lived with narcissists. If we have addiction in our family, we're often drawn to all that craziness and drama. It's a family disease. It's not easy. And I love that Kirsty and Joseph were giving props to that. You're writing about a different person. Because I always looked at it and everyone's right. Everyone's experience is right and good. And we all work with others and thank God and make a difference with drowning men and save them. I always thought like step 4 is like at the time where you're writing down a lot of painful stuff. If someone's writing about the rape, writing about the abortion, writing about the abuse, writing about how daddy hit them, right? Like it hurts. Like That is why we launch. That is why we vigorous. That is why we action. Because like you don't want to sit there for a long time. You don't want to stay in the dark alley, even if it's someone else's dark alley, you know? I don't want to I don't want to stay in my dark alley or anyone else's for that matter. It's not healthy, and it's not, as our big book says, helpful. So again, I just want to put in a real plug for those of you who are working the program and it's taking forever, or you're lost in step 4, your sponsees are dropping in step 4, consider that you might be going a little too slow, that there might be some selfishness, arrogance, or or codependency in there. We just want the sponsee to have that aha moment. Or if you're working the steps, you just want to have that aha moment of like, oh, like if I want a good relationship with my mom, I should go visit her. I should make sure I'm well rested and well fed and I can handle it. It's my responsibility. I'm taking inventory. Okay. That's my plug on getting through this swiftly. And that's what I love about Reco12 and Noodle Out with Mickey and the spiritual gangsters, that we go through swiftly. Working the big book for Al-Anon. We don't just read literatures. We don't do, the ripple effect talks about, we don't do the wall steps. We don't just quote slogos and looks at those pretty steps and inspiring, things on the wall. We take the steps, they're action. So step 4 is action, but we want to get through it. Like here in my country, it's almost Passover. We clean the house for every last crumb of bread. Like we have a deadline. We got to do that by, it's about April 15th. By April 15th, I have to have not one crumb of bread, pretzels, cereals, or cookies in my house. I got to work like a fiend to do that. That's kind of like step 4. Like I got a deadline and my life depends on it. Okay, Kirsty, you take it away. Share some wisdom on that or the next part.
I'm just looking at some of the wording, like fatal, kills us, so reading this step 4 with someone armed with the facts, and I'm fully understanding, this resentment could kill me. So, I was more than happy to launch into this vigorous action, because when I come into these rooms, I was nearly dead. I could feel that I was dying and I could not manage my life. Do you know what I mean? And getting to this point, resentment's what's going to kill me. I've got this far, I've got to launch into that course of vigorous action. And I think for me, it was having a sponsor that took me through it properly and made me understand, your life depends on doing this. So though the decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. So now I'm a child of God, I'm reborn, but that's going to have little permanent effects. The sense of ease and comfort of feeling God come to me at step 3, and waking up to the fact that I had God consciousness. That was such a warming, protecting experience. So knowing that would have little permanent effects, and that would mean nothing, and I would still be blocked off from this power. And this resentment, one thing I can say for anyone that's about to do a step 4, it's this book, these steps are the best thing that's ever happened in my life. 100%, the best thing. And before, I was a person that somebody had upset me, when I'm writing that list and I'm dead angry. And that would live with me, that would eat me up. I would hate on someone for the most minor things for years and years and years. And that's a painful, horrible way to live. This program's given me a new set of eyes. I no longer live like this. I do step 4s daily in my step 10. If something comes and makes me feel, I don't really get resentful today over things. I see things of this is a gift from God. What do I need to learn from this? How do I grow? I obviously get fearful about things, especially surrounding my children, but I don't let it eat up my life today. I've got inventory that I can do. I can set it on paper, and the only thing I can change is me. So I disregard column 2, what they've done entirely, because my big book says disregard entirely. And what I do is I look, where am I to blame? Am I being selfish, self-seeking fear, false pride? That's massive for me. But I only know that today from writing things on paper, sharing it with another person being a big book person, someone knows my end goal, and praying it away. I can't remove these resentments. I can't unblock that column thought. God will help me do that. But I need to know what that is. I need to know what that is, and the way I know is by setting it on paper, sharing it with another person. And it's such a freeing experience. And I'm so new to recovery still. So I do step 10s like my life depends on it daily. But the more I've gone through my months, the less and less I'm affected by resentment, anger, fear, the more I'm at one with God, and nothing seems to safe and protected. And I would have never got to that stage without a thorough step 4, without understanding what step 4 was, to disregard that other person entirely, look at where I'm to blame. And that column 4 on everyone that I work with and myself, it's a constant pattern. The same things that are blocking me off from the one who has all power, the same things. And that's what I can change. I can change me with the help of God.
Amazing. Amazing. Kirsty, we have a question in the chat. Believing you were reborn in step 3, how does that help you enjoy a 9th step promise, as well as eliminate a resentment you had against yourself?
Oh, lovely. I think I know who's asked this question. Yes, so my friend who is on the call helps me understand the rebornness of step 3 and learn more about it and have a whole new step 3 experience. And I think I did share on this podcast, the first one possibly, that I'd always regret the harm I'd caused my children, and which I truly meant when I said it on here. And I think I come back on and shared that today, and I truly mean this, and because I'm honest today, I don't regret the harm I caused my children, because I do see it as it was not me. It wasn't me. Like, I'm a new person. I would never cause my children harm today. And I can't change the past, and I can't change the fact I'm an addict, but also I'm so grateful that I'm an addict, because that's made me at one with God, which I would never be. Never. Because I would have never searched for God. I would have never searched for this way of life. And today I truly don't regret that past, because without that past, I wouldn't have this life. And that was an amazing growth, the journey and that's the amazing stuff about this program. I always learn more. I always feel like I get closer to God through other people, through all these amazing spiritual teachers. And anyone doing a step 4 as well, this brings me to this point with that step 9 promise. That's something that step 9 promise didn't come true for me, at the beginning of my journey. And anything, I get a lot of people that I work with, and they're worried that they're going to miss something out or forget something. We're always growing. We can do another step 4. We can do a step 10 on it. There's always more to do. It's a journey of spiritual growth.
Absolutely. And it's not like step 4 makes us perfect parents. I mess up with my kids, not as bad as I used to before I was in his rooms. I'm a lot more patient. I'm a lot less violent. I'm a lot less volatile. Same with Kirsty. For those of you who haven't heard our previous podcast, Kirsty's a great mom. She goes ice skating with her kids. She gets their nails done. She talks things out of her coffee. We've grown up, right, girl? We've grown up. We talk to our kids. We work out issues. We consult with them about problems that they're having, rather than manhandling them or, battle ramming them into doing what they need to do, waking up on time, getting to school on time, going to bed on time. And the list goes on and on for those parents on the call and just those who live with people. The thing is that we have a program to work with it. So it's again back to my pre-Passover metaphor or decluttering metaphor. When you declutter at first, if you're somewhat of a hoarder, you might first not be sure if you want to part with the sweater or not. And only the really ugly ones or the really old ones or the ones you're too fat to wear, you'll get rid of. But as you kind of get more lean and mean and into it, you're like, that's it. 6 months, I haven't worn it out. 6 months, I haven't worn it out. No one's played with this out. I'm going to give it to Goodwill. I'm going to give it to Salvation Army. You get to be like, more of a monster, and I mean that in a positive sense. You know, you get to be more of an athlete. We grow along spiritual lines. You'll get better at this. But again, you want to get a sense of your grosser handicaps. You want your sponsee to get a sense of your grosser handicaps. And if I could do anything is beg any of you that are stuck in step 4 to just finish it to the best of your ability, because you will relapse and you will die. Now, not necessarily a physical death, but just ask anyone in these rooms, the minute we have a resentment, the minute someone at work steps on our toes or humiliates us or bruises our egos, you know, we're good as dead very, very fast, very fast, very fast. But, you know, again, we have a program to work it out. We have a solution. We don't have to yell. We don't have to hit. We don't have to use. We don't have to drink. Yeah. Yeah. Should we talk a little bit about the actual worksheets, the inventory process, Kirsty? Want to talk about the putting pen to paper?
Yeah, so I use the Big Book Sponsorship Workbook Guide. I think most people on Reco use it, which makes it so easy for my alcoholic addict brain, because it really is so simple. And the main thing that really helped me is do not overthink. Column 1, who am I angry at? Name, you know, mum. The cause, why. I don't need a massive long story, like as we just read out in the book, bullet points. Didn't look after me properly when I was younger, upset me, made me feel unsafe. That's it. I don't like the details really don't matter. That's the way I got taught. The details don't matter. What matters is getting what's blocking me from God. What's that affected? My security, my self-esteem. So column 3 again, I choose, and the examples are here. So it just shows me out of the parts of self. So what's this affected? Self-esteem, security, ambitions, pocketbook, or relationships. I write down what it's affected. So for my example there, it's affected my self-esteem, my security, my ambitions, my pocketbook, and my relations. So it's affected all of them. Column 4, where am I at fault? Where am I to blame? What are my mistakes, my character defects? Now, I was a child, so some people might say, well, I've got nothing to blame there because I'm a child and my mum should have looked after me properly. But where am I to blame? I want to be free from God. So I'm disregarding entirely what my mum did, because this is about me and I want to be free. So today I can see it differently. And where I'm to blame is I'm being self-seeking still. Like it's happened, you know, I can't live my life resenting and angry, and I have to find forgiveness to live. Like if I wasn't an addict, I wasn't an alcoholic, I might be able to live my life, but I've not got the dubious luxury of anger today. I've not got that. So where am I to blame for myself in that one would be dishonesty, distrust, self-seeking, fear. What can I change that for? So that's my column 4. Self-seeking, dishonesty, distrust, fear. What can I change that for? Trust, honesty, you know, unselfishness, faith. That's my column 5. Bam, that's one done. And then I pray for my mum. Perhaps my mum was spiritually sick, so just like I am, just like I might have caused harm to my kids and would be on their step 4 one day. Like I see it from an entirely different view. And I do my sick man's prayer. Do my sick man's prayer, no matter, even if it's not entirely my fault, even if someone's caused me more harm, I pray for them. I find it in my heart to find forgiveness with God's help so I can be free.
And I want to say something about what Kirsty just said. And you all have a lot to learn from her. She's such a great mom. And I certainly try to be. This morning I had a spiritual moment. I was packing my daughter off. My 14-year-old was going to what's called Machane. It's like a school overnight, and she was planning food with kids and her girls in her class and getting together out. But then I sent her to religious school, and it's just like good, clean fun. And they were on the planning committee, and I was so overjoyed that she's so happy. Thank God, and busy with positive activity in a beautiful religious seminary that she goes to, where she's learning to be a good person and do good deeds. And it's just I was just so grateful to God. One, thank God that my daughter is happy. And two, that I'm thinking about her happiness. Like I was sitting there cutting bell peppers for my 12-year-old and waiting to send her off on her trip. And I was like, I'm so glad I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm single and haven't been on a date in years. I'm so glad that I'm not thinking about how someone hurt my feelings at the office the other day, which happens regularly. And then I do a step 10. I was like, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And that's because I have a program to do inventory and get me into that fourth dimension, into who God would have me be. Certainly as a mommy, as a friend, as a coworker, I get that stuff out of the way rather than let it pile up, and clog everything, clog me emotionally, physically, drain me, make me all pale, sick. I was sick last week over resentment. I want to encourage you guys again. I know I didn't say it before. I'll say it again. Get through your step 4 quickly. Don't make it a drama. It's simple. It's not easy. A price has to be paid. Like I said, cutting pepper, sending a kid off, not dating, not gallivanting, not shopping on Fifth Avenue or, in Mamilla Mall here in Jerusalem. It's like my job is to be of maximum service. So a price has to be paid. No one says it's easy breezy, but you reap such amazing benefits and you end up having fun and you end up having the joy, the real joy with depth and weight and meaning of being of service, of being a person who's of service and practicing these principles in all of our affairs. But you have to put pen to paper again. It doesn't have to be long. What I love about the workbook is it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be a confessional, like Nikki M says, who's our spearhead here on Reco12 and in using this big book, 12 Steps in 4 Hours workbook. Where was I selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, afraid? Staccato, as they say in music. Da, 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 da. Selfish, I'm thinking about me. Afraid, I want to be perfect. Self-seeking, I want everyone to think I'm the bomb. Afraid, I don't want to be alone, whatever it is. It's just short. And if I was selfish, and who would God have me be? If I was afraid, I would be courageous. If I was selfish, I'd be, I don't know, magnanimous, others focused, generous. If I was self-seeking, I might be humble. I might be nurturing, compassionate, whatever. But we do it staccato. We do bullet points. You don't have to make it like a whole deal. Go for it, Kirsty.
I love this bit in the workbook guide as well. This is out of the Wally P. Back to Basics book. So how they did it in the 1940s when the success rate was a lot higher than it is today. So no, it is not necessary for newcomers to talk about every resentment or selfish act or each person they have ever lied to or harmed for the inventory to be thorough. So all that counts is that thorough and honesty. But to be thorough, it doesn't mean that we have to have all these millions of details. The objective is to get to the causes and conditions. And my causes and conditions are that column 4. Like that's the objective, to see what's blocking me from God, nothing else there. Sometimes it takes only a few incidents to make clear which shortcomings, again, that column 4, have kept the newcomer blocked from an intimate two-way relationship with the one who has all power, God. Like, that's all I need out of this step 4, that column 4. What is blocking me? What's blocking me from the one who has all power? And for myself, in my step 4, it became very clear that as I was writing these things out, column 1 and 2 might be different. Column 3 was starting to match up. Column 4 was just repeating. And when we get to that stage, I've got what's blocking me.
Let's maybe, before we take some questions, let's maybe talk a little bit about fears, right? I remember a certain fellow was talking to another fellow about another failed marriage. And they were like, that wasn't a marriage. That wasn't love. This person came into the room, was really broken. And she said, 2 things there, lust and fear. And I was like, what? I almost got whiplash from how fast she answered. She's like, yeah, you just wanted a man. You're afraid to be alone. Wow. That's simple. It's that simple. It's that bottom line. It's just fear. Fear is the corroding thread. And certainly, as we're talking about the mommy podcast, how many parenting mistakes? Because we're worried, what's going to be with her? Is she going to be overweight? Is she going to have friends? Is she going to, not get good grades? Is she going to, get into bad, God forbid, into bad stuff? Especially if we have addiction in our family and we've got the Al-Anonism, which happens, right? It says, even I know, I'm not even talking about drugs or alcohol. For every obese person, there's 17 people affected. I heard there was some sort of book written about, coping with obesity in families. Every compulsive overeater, for every addict, there's a ring of people who are affected by that. So again, we do a lot of crazy things with that corroding thread with fear. Kirsty, do you want to talk about fear and how you work with your sponsors or how you work your own program around fears and turning around those fears?
Yes, thank you, Karen. So fear ought to be classed with stealing. Fear ought to be classed with stealing. Like, that was a powerful line for me. Fear stole my mind, like literally stole my mind. But when I come into these rooms, I was so sick and I could not see the tree from the forest. And I was like, I would have told you I wasn't scared of anything. But in actual fact, all my reactions to a lot of things in my life all come from fear. Acting out of fear controlled my life. Like, acting on fear, like, restricts your life as well. Like, sets you so much back because we're fearful of doing the next thing that could be the next brilliant thing. Like, today, I have ultimate trust in God. Like, fear, like, is not there because I have ultimate trust in God. Whatever's happening, this is what should be happening right now. This is God's plan, Fear literally controlled my life without me even being aware that I was scared of anything. Like, thank God for this program. And I remember when I was in treatment, I think I was about 5 weeks clean, and I went to visit home for the weekend, and I was terrified. And it was the first time in my life that I'd had a thought to pick up drugs and I didn't. And all I kept remembering is my spiritual teacher in my treatment centre, who I love dearly, and I'd really thank for everything. I'd said the opposite to fear is faith, the opposite to fear is faith. When I was terrified, I just got on my hands and knees and prayed and prayed and prayed. And like the book tells us, God comes to all who honestly seek. And that was the day for me that I found God. And that come from that place of fear. So today I'm not fearful of fear. Like, if fear comes up, I know it's going to bring me closer to God. Because with fear today, I'm just going to go to God. I don't have to be fearful today because I have God in my life today. So fear doesn't have to exist anymore. I don't have to react on fear or not react through fear.
We have a question here in the chat, and I encourage anyone else who has questions. We're going to wrap up in a few minutes to put your questions in the chat. Someone is asking, what if you've done your step 4 and 5, you prayed for someone, you still have some level of resentment for the person? What do you do?
Okay, so I personally, I can't find it in my book, page 552. If you have resentment you want to be free of, if you will pray for the person or the thing that you resent, you will be free. If you will ask in prayer for everything you want for yourselves to be given to them, you will be free. Ask for their health, their prosperity, their happiness, and you will be free. Even when you don't really want it for them and your prayers are only words and you don't mean it, go ahead and do it anyway. Do it every day for 2 weeks and you will find that you have come to mean it and want it for them. And you will realize that where you used to feel bitterness and resentment and hatred, you now feel compassionate, understanding, and love. It worked for me then, and it has worked for me many times since, and it will work for me every time I am willing to work it. Sometimes I have to ask first for the willingness, but it too always comes. And because it works for me, it will work for all of us. As another great man says, the only real freedom a human being can ever know is doing what you ought to do because you want to do it. And that has honestly worked for me. And I've done it for more than 2 weeks. I've just prayed for the person every single night until this comes true. And like it says, it's on page 552 in the big book. Pray for the willingness if I'm not willing first.
And I'm going to add in there, when all else fails, work with another alcoholic will save the day. So I've prayed a lot on people and not been free. I'm not such a saint like Kirsty is. She's just so nice. I could sometimes, hold on to those things. And they're like a stubborn stain I can't get out, on a white skirt, just praying and praying and praying. And I'm still, boiling. My blood is boiling. But somehow, when by the grace of God, I start working with a new sponsee or working with someone else, it vanishes. It's like that, stain cleaner, that in this country we have oxygen and Cali. I don't know what you have all around the world, but it's just that stain remover, the extra strength stain remover. When I can't get rid of a resentment, I start calling my sponsees, or I work with a new sponsor, or I'll get into my step 12, start sharing experience, strength, and hope where it's appropriate. But it's amazing if you really did a good step 3, like Joseph always says, and really giving your life and your will over to the care of God, and really want to live these principles in all your affairs. A lot of step 12 opportunities come your way without you proselytizing. Like in the office, people tell me their problems, and then I could share, even without quoting the big book, about how I used to be and things that helped me. And then, maybe if they're interested, slip them some literature or a website or something. But that's what I have found. The only thing that really works for me when I'm good and stuck is working with others. And then, of course, for those of us who sponsor, taking someone's step 5 is just a real honor and a privilege. I feel so blessed. It's such a high, no pun intended, after someone shares their step 5 with me, that I've been able to be the vessel to help them get closer to their higher power, to help them clear away the wreckage of their past, to help them take that past and make it their greatest asset and save other people who are drowning men. And I'm going to put in another plug here. If you're working with others and if you're new to sponsoring and someone's dragging their feet, don't be afraid to let them go. We have a lot of codependency, a lot of people pleasing, which we call dishonesty in our step 4. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to let them, to say, and it's not even let them go or break up. It's just like complete doing the step work together, because that's not step work. Dragging your feet, making a whole thing, asking a trillion questions. We just follow the workbook, black on white. We just go through it. It's like, and often being smart is a liability. It's not an asset in these steps because it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. Any closing words you want to say on step 4, dear?
Thank you for letting me be here today. Thank you all. And step 4, I always say, is the freedom step. Like, we've made that reborn at step 3. This is the start of a beautiful journey. And I think what really helps me is seeing people as spiritually sick. Like it said in the book, just like me. Was I angry and bitter at people for doing things that I have done myself to, like, they're sick just like me? And my aim today is to be most helpful to sick people. How can I help? Sometimes it's just not being around that person, but sometimes I can be helpful. Like sick people just like me. And thank God someone helped me.
Want to pray us out? You have a prayer, 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer, any prayer that's in your heart, Kirsty?
Yeah, shall we do this 3rd step prayer? 3rd step seems to be apparent today. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I may help of thy power, thy love, thy way of life. May I do thy will always, always.
Amen. Thank you all for joining us here at Reco12. Feel free to be in touch with me, Kirsty. Maybe you want to put your number in the chat. If people
Yes,
want to reach out to you,
certainly.
if you're sponsoring, looking for sponsees, looking to sponsor, if you want to share on Reco12, you go to reco12.com and record yourself on the speak pipe, or you could just reach out to me. We'd love to have you. Next week, we're going to be having Rigo M, who is, I believe, joined our podcast for the first time today, and we look forward to hearing his experience, strength, and hope. And we wish all of you a beautiful day. Remember that you're all intelligent agent spearheads of God's everlasting creation. Thank you.
There was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to scream, but the sound never came out. So he reached for the bottle to wash the pain away, 'cause what he wanted so badly was to live a different way. And all of his problems and all of his pain filled up the puddle and rose with the rain. His ship kept on sinking to the bottom of the lake. For certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to share, but only lies ever came out. So he reached for the needle to numb the pain inside, and the truth that he yearned for shriveled up and died. And all of his problems and all of his pain filled up the puddle, rose with the rain. Ship kept on sinking, bottom of the lake. For certain that he was just a fake, just a side of his mouth as he read from the book, only truth spilled out. So he reached for a power to help him through the night. 'Cause what lives in the darkness dies dies in the night. Yeah, what lives in the dark dies in